In the heart of an ancient academic institution, where the ivy crept over Gothic arches and whispered tales of bygone eras, a peculiar legend circulated among the students and faculty. The legend spoke of the phantom bell, an ethereal chime that echoed through the hallowed halls, inaudible to all but those burdened with guilt for wrongs committed against their peers. Eleanor, a bright but solitary figure in the sea of scholars, brushed aside the tales as mere superstitions, a relic of the institution's medieval past. Her days were consumed by the pursuit of knowledge, her nights haunted by a relentless ambition that allowed little room for the frivolities of student life or the petty squabbles that often beset it. But one crisp autumn evening, as she traversed the labyrinthine corridors deep in thought, Eleanor heard it, a clear, resounding toll that seemed to emanate from the very stones beneath her feet. The sound pierced her thoughts, arresting her in her tracks. She looked around, her heart racing, but the corridor lay empty, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun filtering through stained glass. Confusion gave way to dread as Eleanor recalled the legend. She had always considered herself just and fair in her dealings, yet the bell's clarion call suggested otherwise. That night, as she lay in her narrow dormitory bed, she was visited by a series of vivid visions, each a grotesque tableau of her own misdeeds. She saw herself, aloof and dismissive, brushing past a tearful classmate without a word of comfort. She watched as her cutting words fell like icy daggers upon the hearts of those who dared to challenge her intellect. She witnessed the isolation of a peer. She with each vision, the tolling of the phantom bell grew louder, an inescapable reminder of the pain she had inflicted, however unwittingly. The realization dawned upon Eleanor that true scholarship could not thrive in the absence of empathy and compassion. Tormented by the relentless chime and haunted by the faces of those she had wronged, Eleanor sought to make amends. She offered her apologies, not as grand gestures for all to see, but in quiet, sincere moments that spoke of genuine contrition. She extended her friendship and assistance, breaking down the barriers her previous demeanor had erected. Slowly, the visions abated, and the tolling of the phantom bell faded into silence, its purpose served. Eleanor had learned that knowledge without kindness was a hollow pursuit, and that the true essence of scholarship lay in the connections forged between hearts and minds. But the legend of the phantom bell lived on, a spectral guardian of the institution's conscience, ready to toll its warning for those who, lost in their own ambitions, might stray from the path of empathy and rectitude. For in the hallowed halls of the academy, the phantom bell served not as a curse, but as a catalyst for redemption, its chime a reminder that the greatest lessons often lay not in the pages of a book, but in the human heart. In the heart of a long-forgotten town stood an old, decrepit high school, a place riddled with whispered tales and eerie legends. Among these, one stood out, the story of the mirror in the girls' bathroom. It was said to be no ordinary mirror. Instead of reflecting one's current visage, it revealed the chilling sight of how one would appear at the moment of their death. While some regarded it as a dire warning, others whispered it was a dreadful curse. The legend had been passed down through generations of students, morphing into a dare among the bravest, or most foolish. The challenge was simple: enter the bathroom at the stroke of midnight, stare into the mirror, and confront your final moments. Most who attempted came back shaken, spouting incoherent tales of aged faces and eyes filled with unspeakable terror, yet none could confirm the truth of their visions. That it was on a stormy night, under the cloak of rumbling thunder, that three friends, Sophie, Mia, and Evelyn, decided to unveil the mystery. Fueled by a blend of curiosity and youthful bravado, they tiptoed through the dark, deserted hallways, their hearts pounding in unison with the erratic beat of the rain against the windows. As they reached the bathroom, the air grew thick, the silence broken only by their synchronized breaths. With trembling hands, Sophie pushed the door open, revealing the dimly lit room. There, hanging on the wall, was the infamous mirror, its frame tarnished by time. The girls approached, their reflections swallowed by the murky glass. They exchanged nervous glances before focusing on the mirror. At first, nothing happened, their anxious faces stared back at them. But as the seconds ticked by, a subtle shift occurred. Their reflections began to warp, their features twisting into grotesque versions of themselves. Sophie's reflection aged rapidly, her skin sagging, her eyes hollow. Mia's face contorted in an eternal scream, her eyes wide with an unspeakable horror. Evelyn's reflection turned pale and gaunt, her eyes empty, as if life had been drained from her body. Panic set in, and they stumbled back, gasping for air. The mirror's curse had revealed their darkest fears, death in its most haunting forms. But as they turned to flee, a chilling realization struck them. The mirror did not predict, it reflected the present, twisted by their own fears and imaginations. The truth of the mirror was far more terrifying than any curse. It mirrored the deepest, darkest corners of one's soul, the fears that gnawed at the edges of their sanity. The girls escaped into the night, their friendship bonded tighter by the shared ordeal, their laughter a mask for the terror that lingered in their hearts. And so, the legend of the mirror in the girls' bathroom lived on, a reminder that sometimes, the most horrifying monsters are the ones that dwell within us, waiting for a mirror to reveal them. In the forgotten wing of Eldridge High, whispers of the forbidden classroom slither through the halls like shadows at twilight. Students speak of it in hushed tones, a room that defies the rigid order of school schedules and maps. It is said to appear only at the stroke of midnight, its door creaking open to those whose hearts are laden with curiosity and dread. Jenna, a new transfer with an insatiable thirst for the unknown, heard these murmurs and felt a magnetic pull towards the mystery. Despite warnings from her peers, she vowed to uncover the truth. On a moonless night, armed with nothing but a flickering flashlight and a brave heart, she ventured into the desolate wing. As the clock tower solemnly announced midnight, a door, previously invisible to the naked eye, materialized before her. Its ancient wood groaned as she pushed it open, revealing a classroom untouched by time. Dust motes danced in the beam of her flashlight, and the air was thick with the scent of forgotten tales. The room was an eerie mirror of a typical classroom, but with twisted nuances. Desks were arranged in a semicircle, facing a blackboard that shimmered with an otherworldly glow, displaying the words, "Face thy fear." Jenna's heart raced as the door slammed shut behind her, the echo of its closure a grim reminder of the tales she'd been told. Suddenly, the room morphed before her eyes, the walls pulsating with a life of their own. Jenna found herself not in a classroom, but standing at the edge of a vast, dark forest, the very embodiment of her deepest fear, being utterly alone in the unknown. The trees whispered her name, their voices a symphony of her insecurities. Determined to confront her fear, Jenna stepped into the forest. With each step, the whispers grew louder, more insidious, clawing at her resolve. Shadows twisted into figures of doubt and loneliness, reaching out to engulf her. Yet, she pressed on, driven by a force she couldn't understand. At the heart of the forest, Jenna encountered a mirror, its surface as still as a pond under the moonlight. The reflection staring back was not her own but a manifestation of all her fears amalgamated into a single, terrifying entity. It was the ultimate test. Jenna realized that to escape, she must confront not the forest, but the darkness within herself. With a trembling hand, she reached out to the mirror. As her fingers brushed against its cold surface, the entity shattered into a million shards, each piece dissolving into nothingness. The forest faded away, and Jenna found herself back in the classroom, the door now ajar, beckoning her return to reality. As she stepped into the hallways of Eldridge High, the first rays of dawn kissing the horizon, Jenna was not the same. The forbidden classroom had changed her, not by haunting her with fears, but by teaching her the power of facing them. The door to the forbidden classroom vanished with the coming of light, as if it were nothing but a figment of the imagination. But Jenna knew better. It was a guardian of the most profound lesson: the only way out is through, And the darkest fears lose their power when confronted with courage. And so, the legend of the forbidden classroom lived on, a chilling reminder that sometimes, the scariest stories are the ones we write for ourselves, in the classrooms of our minds, at the stroke of midnight.